So, Michael, big news coming out of Disney, the world's most friendliest, happiest, bestest company ever. Oh yeah, thank you for that check, Mister. Yeah, no, that was a joke because Disney are taking over the world, and they have just launched phase, let's say phase 3. You know, the Marvel universe has got phases, but I think Disney have just launched phase 3, which is releasing a bunch of shows on Disney Plus. They've got Star Wars, they bought Star Wars, of course they control Marvel movies, and now they are releasing those two properties on their own streaming service, and boy is there a bunch of them. Let's just go through the Star Wars ones first. We've got Children of Blood and Bone, The Mandalorian, which is already on of course, Visions, Lando, A Droid Story, Rogue Squadron, Ahsoka, I don't know, Rangers of the New Republic, Andor, Willow, The Bad Batch, Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Acolyte, and Indiana Jones, which I don't think is to do with Star Wars, but I don't know why it's up there. So yeah, all of that, and then you've got a bunch more Marvel stuff as well. Even a Buzz Lightyear spin-off.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
So yeah, what's going on with Disney, Michael? How long until it's all over and we're all their slaves? Because it's going that way. We're either going to be their slaves or Amazon's.
Yeah, so well, we need some good old-fashioned trust busting, don't we? Roosevelt style. That's what I'm looking forward to. No, yeah, like basically
we need to give Star Wars to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, they control everything, and that's why I guess films like this, which we're reviewing today, are so important because they're made by small indie studios that aren't controlled by Disney. You know, really obscure studios. That's basically what's going to happen. Every single other studio is going to just become nothing compared to Disney. So they're going to start making loads of indie films. That's my prediction now.
I mean, that won't be the worst thing ever, to be honest, because, the indie films aren't bad. I mean, yeah, but, like, it's I really don't know what to make of this, because I'm a fan of Star Wars. I'm not really a fan of Marvel movies, but given the track record with Star Wars, maybe I shouldn't be a fan of Disney Star Wars movies. And, it just seems kind of like they're churning them out. I know, studios, of course, have always relied on these big blockbuster movies, and especially in the last decade, that's been the case. But it just seems like that, any pretense of there being, like, I don't know, art or stories involved is just being thrown out the window. Yeah, and it's always been the case, really, but it's now even more blatant than ever before.
No, yeah, I agree with you. We're in the end game now.
We are.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and today we are celebrating the release of Wonder Woman 1984 by looking at Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Undescribed year. So Luke, wait and tell us a thing or two about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's not Wonder Woman 1918, it's just Wonder Woman. So, Wonder Woman is a 2017 American superhero film based on the DC Comics character of the same name, which is Wonder Woman. Produced by DC Films in association with Rat Pack Entertainment and Chinese company Tencent Pictures, and distributed by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers. I do, after Disney, just as we talked about in the opening, just went out on crack yesterday. I wonder if Warner Brothers are going to do the same.
Oh, great, we're going to get more Fantastic Beasts movies.
Yeah.
all they own is Harry Potter.
Oh, God. Yeah, Harry Potter combined with Justice League. They can do something there, maybe. Wonder Woman was the fourth installment in the DC Extended Universe, or the DCEU. Yes. It was directed by Patty Jenkins. The screenplay is by Alan Heinberg. The story is by Zack Snyder, Alan Heinberg, and Jason Fuchs. Or Fuchs. Yeah, he sure does. Definitely after this movie.
Yeah, because of all the women he empowered. Exactly.
They're all gonna love him. Well done, Jason. I'm just gonna look at what he looks like. Is that him? All right. He's an actor as well. Okay, that makes sense. Right, yeah. So he looked good. I was like, what the fuck? Nah. So congratulations, Jason Fox. Also stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Robin Wright, Danny Hudson, David Thewlis, Connie Nielsen, Elena Anaya, and oh my god, Said Tag Hamawi. There we go, nailed it. And The movie was released on June the 2nd, 2017 in the United States. And Michael, can you guess what the budget was for Wonder Woman?
A lot. 120 million.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
120 to 150.
Okay.
All
Wow.
right, and you got one of them, so I'm going to say well done. Correct.
Yeah. I was
You could be
within the
very
margin of error.
Well, I mean, it was even in the margin of error.
yeah.
It was correct. It was
Well
even
done.
more. It was even better than that. Now let's go through the box office, Michael. How much do you think it raked in?
I don't know, more than Justice League. 700 seems like a lot of money, and I know that the DC films have generally underperformed. So, I guess 600 million? 650.
You see, Michael, I know you like to think you are some champion of women. That you are not a misogynist or inherently a misogynist, but I think this kind of shows how much work how much you underestimate them and how much work you have to do on yourself.
Self-correct.
Yes, because this movie grossed 821 million and you were 170 million off, and I suspect the reason why you were so far off is because of your preconceived notions of how good a female-led superhero movie could do.
Well, you know what, actually, Luke, I will say this. I was thinking that this made more money than any of the other DC films that came before it, which were man-led. Actually, it probably didn't make more money than Man of Steel, because...
No, it did.
Oh, did it? Okay, I wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure it did.
Because
I'm
I was
pretty
kind of thinking Man of Steel was before everyone realised these films suck.
I think Man of Steel was in the 600 range. I think Batman v Superman was in the 750 range, and I can't. Justice League.
Yeah, Justice League made hardly anything.
Yeah, Justice League wasn't good either. Like this, yeah, Wonder Woman might be the highest grossing movie actually out of the whole DC.
I feel like Aquaman made a surprising amount, but
oh yeah, Aquaman. Yeah, I think Aquaman might have knocked it off the top spot actually. Yeah,
couldn't have happened to a better movie.
Yeah, exactly. If any movie were to do it, I'm glad it's Aquaman. So anyway, Michael. By the way, just to point out, it is the second live-action theatrical film featuring Wonder Woman, following her debut in the 2016 movie Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Sorry, I believe your friend's pronounced Debut, like Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot's Debut.
Great. Yeah, so there you go. We've already seen her, Michael. Who could forget her incredible performance in Batman v Superman?
Yeah.
Where she shows up at the end out of nowhere to save the day.
Is she with you?
Yeah, God. One of the most embarrassing scenes in superhero movie history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Michael, did you like Wonder Woman?
I actually, see, I liked it more the first time I watched it. And then having watched it again, I kind of found it, like, it's not bad. It's really not bad. But it's just, I was like, is it that good? I don't know. I wasn't that into it as I was watching it.
I think it's probably it's a very standard superhero movie. It's not great, but it's not bad. It is, and this is the thing, people were really happy about it when it came out. But I mean, that shows how bad the DCEU turned out to be, because I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, this isn't great, is it? I mean, it's not bad, but it's just standard. It's just what you expect out of a superhero movie. Just a basic level of competence, I guess, for that. So, Michael, Wonder Woman, how many nitpicks do you have for it?
I've got 6, and I even just cut one out because I was like, oh, Luke won't like that.
Okay, well, I've got 4, so you go first.
Actually, it's you go first, because that means you might have one of those same ones I've got.
Because I don't think I've gone first for a while. Right. Okay, so nitpicks. I'll go through these quickly. So her mother. I can't remember what her mother is. It begins with an O, though.
Yeah, so, Oristophanes.
Olytopia.
Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia, basically, she sees Diana training with the girl from House of Cards, Robin Wright, and then her mother switches on a dime. Forbids her from fighting at first, and then Robin Wright says, "Hey, come on, she needs to be trained. She's a weapon of war, essentially." That's the subtext.
Spoilers.
And then her mum's like, "Okay, you can fight now." Right, that little speech convinced me. My preconceived ideas of what you should do, well, they're all been thrown out the window. So there you have it. Lovely bit of screenplay writing there. And here's a peculiar nitpick, Michael, and you'll help me with this. Her breastplate armor.
Oh yeah.
So there is breastplate armor in this movie. I didn't think this was a problem. Apparently, I saw a tweet on Twitter of someone complaining about breastplate armor, and I was like, surely that would be better, because it would help women. But,
okay. There's actually, this is interesting, because there was a controversy about this where do you know famous feminist critic Anita Sarkeesian?
I think it was Anita Sarkeesian who tweeted that.
Okay,
that was the
so
tweet
you
I'm
know what?
referencing.
Yeah, maybe this is one of those rare occasions where you and I are both aware of the same political debate because or Twitter debate because I think I saw it too, and it was So basically, what I was about to do is pretty much inform you of what you already know, which is what I saw in that debate, which is it was 50% of people being like, well, a lot of women who have, you might say, quite standard sized breasts probably wouldn't really need breastplate armor because they'd be because their boobs aren't really that big and they're kind of squishable. But certainly for some women who might have large breasts, they would need breastplate armor. I will say this: I think this is the rule of thumb that I think I'm going with. Breastplate armor should probably exist for women or breast shaped armor, but it should always be slightly smaller than the breast rather than serving to enhance the breasts. So it should kind of squish your breast in a little bit. So if a woman's got really big boobs, she will have some sticky out breastplate armor, but it should be smaller than her boobs. So I think what they have in this film is the breastplate armor is probably, I don't know how big Gal Gadot's boobs are, but I would imagine that in this case the breastplate armor is probably enhancing her boobs, and that's probably inaccurate because you wouldn't want your breastplate armor sticking out more than it needs to. So that's my guess.
Well,
but
I'm glad the rad femme community is spending a lot of time discussing these really important issues.
That was quite funny how long I spent explaining that when I literally have no idea. That's such a me thing to do.
No, I just wanted like a quick thing.
I know.
Whatever. No, okay, it's important apparently. So there you go. Next up, Chris Pratt, the first human to visit this island apparently, or the first man for sure.
Yeah.
You could say, Zeus directing the currents of the oceans and all of that stuff to prevent boats from sailing to Themyscira, but I think, and you could say, well, it's no coincidence that the first time planes are being used in history, so they're not affected by the currents, is the first time that someone crashes on the island. But I can't believe, like, once in the last 2,000 years, it hasn't happened. I mean, maybe it has, and Diana just hasn't seen it. I don't know, but it seems like a pretty big coincidence. That's it.
Did they ever actually establish? I'm just wondering because I didn't pay attention to the film at all when I was watching it. Did they ever establish what kind of body of water Themyscira is located in?
I assume it's located in the Mediterranean.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm thinking. Which, would that because obviously
the
that would make
Aegean,
sense with,
I believe.
Yeah, that would
That's
make sense with
between
it being
Turkey and
Greek.
Greece.
But that is weird because obviously the Aegean is not a big place.
No, it's not that big. Next, and finally, Charlie, the Scottish soldier, has PTSD, but still, Wonder Woman, being the superhero that she is, insists that he doesn't go home. He stays fighting.
Yeah, she's horrible.
No, not really surprising, to be honest. She's a very horrible person, so this lines up with her character. Right, no, that's it. Can you give me your nitpicks, Michael? And please try and be quick.
Right, okay, so one, in Diana's bedroom, there is a picture book that serves as a visual reference for a story she's never been told before. I found that weird, because she's like, I'll tell you the story of our people, and then she walks over to the bedside table of her daughter's room and just takes out a book, and it's like, okay, that sounds weird to just have a picture book in your kid's room and you've never actually read it to them. You would have thought she'd have to go somewhere else to get it if she's never read it. Two, they should really give knives to pilots, because I've seen in several films now pilots almost drown, or I think sometimes even drown, because they've been unable to get out of their restraints. And I think if this is actually happening in real life, pilots, I think, should be given knives, because this is seriously a problem. Three, just in general, fire arrows. It's something which, I like to watch a lot of military history stuff, and I've had it pointed out to me before, and now I will point it out to everyone else, that fire arrows very rarely make any sense and would require quite a few extra unnecessary resources to set them up, so there's no real reason why they'd need to use them, especially seeing as they're fighting some people coming in from the sea, where it would not be difficult for them to put out a fire. 4, the woman swimming from the rope, where she swings in during the beach confrontation. I noticed there's a lot of mine from the beginning. It's kind of because I realized I'd got too many, and then I decided to stop counting them as much. Dies instantly from a gut shot, which is unlikely anyway, because, if you get shot in the stomach, you don't die immediately. And then aren't they supposed to be kind of superhumans in a way? Like, I realize they're not all as strong as Wonder Woman, because that's why she's Wonder Woman, but a regular human being wouldn't die if you shot them in the stomach. So it's a bit weird that she dies instantly. Using an ancient language as a code is pretty stupid, because it literally
By the way,
means...
that was not real. I was going to talk about that later on.
Okay, that's fine. Well, using an ancient language as a code is pretty stupid, because literally, like, the point of a code is that you have to kind of have all of this complex, obviously I live near Bletchley Park, not bragging or anything, but I live near Bletchley Park. I know all about a code. And all you would have to do is go up to any Oxford University classics department and be like, hey, this seems to be written in some ancient language. It's like not a very difficult code to crack. So even if they didn't have Wonder Woman there who can read every single language, it wouldn't have taken them that much longer just to find somebody in all of England, in, you know, like the academics who'd be able to read it. And finally, it's really profoundly wrong to say you can't send troops into battle while negotiating a surrender. One of the lines they say is, oh, we can't send troops into Belgium while we're negotiating a surrender. A fact I found out recently, even after the surrender had been negotiated for World War One, it was actually agreed that the two sides would keep fighting until the surrender came into effect, which is, of course, on 11 a.m. on the 11th of the 11th, because I don't know exactly what it is, but it's because it's to do with the fact that every single person needs to be told the surrender will happen at a particular time, so you don't end up with a situation where one side gets told that they've surrendered and then immediately stops fighting, and then the other side just takes them over. So it's kind of like, with several hours left, people will be told, okay, keep fighting, because we don't know who knows this, but we're going to stop fighting at 11 a.m. So yeah, it's completely wrong to say that you can't send in troops as you're negotiating surrender, because far from that, you can actually continue fighting, and they did continue fighting, even after they negotiated the surrender. So, wrong.
Okay, so those are the nitpicks, some longer than others. And in the movie, we'll go to the plot first. So, in Wonder Woman, the Amazon princess, Diana, sets out to stop World War One. You know, very historically accurate. I just love that sentence. Believing that the conflict was started by the longtime enemy of the Amazons, Ares, after American pilot and spy Steve Trevor crash lands on their island, Themyscira, and informs her about it. I think I pronounced Themyscira quite well.
Yeah, I think you do. Themyscira.
Yeah, better than you, I think. That is for sure. Okay, so Wonder Woman. Like you said, Michael, it is a movie that has a sequel coming out, 1984, and this movie is set in 1918. And so it starts off. Well, actually, before we get into the plot, I just want to say this movie felt to me like such a throwback, even though it's only 3 years old. This was a time when there was a conversation about the MCU versus DC.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Avengers, Infinity War hadn't been released. That the battle was happening between those two, and then DC, I think, after this movie, released Justice League later on in the year, and everything went extremely badly quite quickly for that universe afterwards. And Aquaman got released at the back end of 2018, I want to say. Yeah. And then Avengers Endgame, which came out in April 2019, has kind of finished off, all the superhero movies since then. You think about it, 18 months ago, no major DC movies have been released in that time, and also only one Marvel movie, which is Spider-Man, because the coronavirus pandemic. But of course, all that is going to change. Things are going to kick right back into gear quite soon, it seems, given Disney's announcements yesterday. We're going to get a bunch of new Marvel movies to come out. So yeah, we can get back to MCU versus DC and who's the best in the next phase. So let's start off again with the plot. So Diana, she's in modern day Paris. Then we have a flashback to basically, well, the whole movie is a flashback, really. And she lives in the society of warrior women on Themyscira, who apparently never engage in wars since they haven't met any humans. I mean, here's the thing, Michael. There's this saying, I guess, if women ruled the world, things would be better. Why can't all women get involved in and be world leaders? Well, it seems like they would still have an unhealthy and unnecessary obsession with war and violence, considering they're still at it and they haven't been attacked in 2,000 years. I don't know. I mean, I know that God created them, Zeus, for war, but I think that's just what they tell themselves, to be honest. I don't believe it. Okay, that's just the background on them. And I just, actually, what, Michael, shall we go into the society a bit more? This Themyscira society?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let's be like...
Well, have you got much to say on this, or is it just me?
No, well, I think I don't have too much to say. I've got one thing about it which is kind of related. But you should probably, I think you've got more, so you should kind of go first, and then we'll have a Michael sandwich where I'll come in and say something in the middle.
All right, okay. So here's the thing, Michael. You're telling me that these women fighters have been on this island for, let's say over 2,000 years.
Yes.
Since, that's when the Greeks had their empire dismantled. They've been shielded from everything, and there was this line that I think the Queen says to Diana, where she says, the world has been quiet ever since. That is not the case. Slavery, for instance, I mean, there have been wars across the world. I mean, just recently, before this movie happened, there was the scramble for Africa.
Oh yeah,
You know?
literally. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Which
mean,
was happening right across the Mediterranean.
yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe they just jump in, you know, Diana just jumps in when the two sides are equally matched. Maybe that's the logic. It's like, well, the Europeans can batter the Zulus, so we don't really need to step in. Because eventually they'll just win the war through
Yeah, that is
their
true,
power.
actually.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if I had this heroic morality and was sworn to defend mankind. You know, I would not describe the last 2,000 years of human history as quiet and also sit on the sidelines, to be honest with you. I would not do that. So I think that's a bit weird that you describe everything just described as quiet and okay. A lot of shit went badly before World War One, wouldn't you say?
No, yeah, I agree with you, and that's pretty much it. It was just terrible. I mean, Napoleonic Wars, that was pretty bad. So it's not, I mean, the Napoleonic Wars was huge. That was like a giant war that lasted way longer than World War One. So they are just, you're right, they're stupid. And I guess the thing is, it's kind of strange because you think about Wakanda, and one of the things with Wakanda that I remember from that film is that Chad Boseman, rest in peace, was angry because he was like, you blocked yourself off from the world and didn't pay attention to it, and that was kind of his criticism. And you almost think it's kind of like that's the criticism that should be being made here by Wonder Woman. Like that's kind of what you think is almost being set up, I guess, because it's like these people were supposed to be helping the world and they've blocked themselves off from it and become ignorant of it. And you think there's a story there, but apparently no. So yeah, it is strange.
I mean that seems to be the case. And I know, it's probably the comic books created this backstory, but I haven't read the comic books and it's still stupid. This was written by people in the 1940s and 50s. I imagine that's what I assume that's when the Wonder Woman character came into existence, because that's when a bunch of other superheroes did. Yeah. So yeah, that's, even if it's the actual backstory, I'm still criticizing it. Also, the Amazons, I assume they age like every 100 years is just 1 year to them.
Yeah.
I assume that's the case. So Diana's like 25,000 years old. That'd be the reality. Okay. So
I don't know if she ages differently because she was obviously made differently, but I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but she obviously ages slower because she's the same in 1917 as she is in the modern day. So
yeah, but so you would say if it's over 2,000 years old, she's in her early 20s when she's fighting in World War One. Would that be fair? That makes sense, right? Anyway, so okay, the movie gets going when Chris Pratt falls into an ocean. This is when the plot really kicks into gear. But this is a coincidence nitpick on steroids, so that's why I didn't put it as a nitpick. After Diana has this big showpiece training thing, her mum's there to see it, so I assume that's what it is. Where she questions herself and her powers and her abilities, or herself, really. She questions herself mainly, and it's not really brought up later on, which we'll get into, but that's what she does. And then right after, when she walks to the ocean, she sees the plane fall into the ocean, and that's what starts her character arc off, apparently. Well, it really doesn't, but yeah, then she immediately has to save Chris. Did I say Chris Pratt before? And then Chris Pine.
Oh yeah, you did say Chris Pratt. Yeah,
because I've actually written Chris Pratt. And I think I've probably done that in other places as well, but it's Chris Pine, obviously.
You can't mention Chris Pratt anymore because he got in trouble.
Yeah, he
got cancelled.
I don't know why, but he did. So yeah, perfect timing, wouldn't you say, Michael? Just wonderful.
No, yeah, actually, I was thinking that. I mean, I guess I'm going to have to disagree with you that it's a nitpick on steroids, because to be honest, I kind of thought about it and I wasn't horrified by it. I was just like, I guess you got to save time.
No, we hold these movies to a high standard when they've got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, sorry.
We fucking don't let them get away with that bullshit.
I know, I feel bad, okay. It was terrible, and it was stupid, and everyone who made it should be ashamed. I do agree with that.
There we go, right. So, then of course, Chris Pine gets washed up on shore, and then the Germans follow him, and then we get to the first battle of the movie, the first battle scene, and oh my god, Michael, these Amazonians are absolutely pathetic. Pathetic pants, whatever. They are awful. They are shocking.
Yes.
Chris Pine is right. If they only have arrows, then how the fuck are they going to save humanity? I look at them, and of course they were great back in the day, 2,000 years ago. But they're like the 1980s Showtime Lakers, who had a dynasty. They won 5 world championships. Imagine they've been put in a time capsule, and they're playing basketball in the modern day, but they're not even facing like the Lakers. Their fellow teammates who won the championship recently in the NBA. It's like they're facing, I don't know, the modern day Sacramento Kings, just a really poor team. And these dynasty Lakers from the 80s, they just get crushed by the modern day Sacramento Kings. That's what it's like. Like, times have moved on, and these Amazonians are clearly a relic from an old era. Who were great, but the game has passed them by. They have bow and arrows. But okay, that's a bit shit. But then their armor doesn't even work. It doesn't even deflect from bullets. Like, as you pointed out before, they can die from just one bullet. I mean, what is that? Like, they had their head general die, the second in command, because of some fat German named Franz who shot her. Just absolutely pathetic. These people are not a proud people. I don't care what anyone says. If that's your defense against some fucking German soldiers from 1918. I mean, plus they didn't even know World War One was going on right now.
Yes.
Again,
this seems like another case of it feels like it's almost begging to be, I guess, deconstructed or like analyzed, the fact that their tactics are so bad, and yet it isn't. Like, it feels like it's one of those things where it's kind of like you feel like the film should be aware of it. Like, I actually wrote down, I was like, so the purpose of the Amazons is to help men with wars, but they know nothing about modern war. Because didn't it say that, like, that the purpose of the Amazons, like, wasn't that the thing they said?
That's what Zeus put in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're supposed to help, and yet they don't know anything. And obviously
they don't know anything, and clearly they're not fit for modern war. They went to the fucking Western Front, and they all get slaughtered.
Yeah, they also they don't seem to understand tactics. Like, Wonder Woman was like, the generals should be up front. And it's kind of like, well, the reason why generals aren't up front anymore is because you actually need to have quite a lot of education to understand war tactics and all that kind of stuff. So you're not just going to want to get all your top military commanders blown up in melee.
Yeah, okay, that is true. But here's the thing, that they clearly aren't fit to fight in World War One. That much is clear. But they don't even know about it, as is established later on. So what even is the point of these people? I mean, because we know eventually we find out that Ares is behind World War One. So they would not have known about this war if Chris Pine hadn't washed up on their shores. I mean, Ares would have fucking won.
Oh yeah, I never actually thought about that. That's actually really funny.
Ares would have won. And what the hell are you doing? You're just sitting there, just like firing arrows at each other on this beautiful paradise.
Yeah, like, actually, it's actually really funny because I guess this is a case of you've got to be like, the Force did it, because the funny thing is they're literally on the island, like, oh, we've got to train her because she needs to be able to be trained in case Ares comes back. They're having this whole argument about like how we've got to train her so that if Ares ever comes back, she'll be prepared, all that kind of stuff. And then Ares
literally comes back,
and they didn't even know about it.
It's like Robin Wright is saying to the Queen, Ares is still alive. I feel it. I feel it, I sense it, and he's just like over there in Western Europe, just murdering people.
Yeah.
Like, Robin Wright, something tells me he's back.
That would be
he's just
like,
out in the open killing people.
I like to think Wonder Woman 1984 will be an alternative history scenario where Chris Pine didn't show up, and she's just going to kind of head outside and just see the entire world is a decimated nuclear wasteland. Like, oh, I guess this happened. Whoops.
Oh shit! Maybe Ares was back. Oh, maybe we should have ventured out of our bubble for a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a good idea. Oh god. Anyway, so next up, so that's basically the beginning. And as you can tell, I have a lot of problems with the Amazonians, the Mascara, the whole concept, the fact that they get beaten so easily by the Germans. It's just all a mess. And to be fair, that you could argue it's not really the movie's fault because that's the lore, that's the backstory to Wonder Woman. But it's in this movie. It's shit, so I'm going to criticize it. So let's get into the actual plot of the movie. So of course, Diana then goes off with Chris Pratt to London to fight in the war, and basically she wants to stop Ares because she thinks Ares is behind everything, and it turns out she's right. But she does basically she's fighting the Germans because Chris Pratt is on the side of the British, and so that's what's happening. The Germans are fighting the British in World War One. And I just want to talk for a bit about the fact that the Germans are kind of portrayed as the bad
villains.
guys.
Yes, okay, I want to talk about this too.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if there was a special section of Germans who are bad and want to prolong the war, because Chris Pine says on the beach, "Oh, those are the bad guys," and the good guys, and it doesn't appear that those German soldiers are actually part of the fucking Ludendorff sort of sect that he has. So they're not the bad guys. They're just doing a mission. But okay, I can forgive that maybe because maybe he doesn't know that. But General Ludendorff is the bad guy. He is this war criminal. He has this crazy German scientist who I guess is the precursor to Dr. Mengele. Another case of a woman not getting the credit she deserves. Why does everyone think experimenting on human beings
is a man's job
for war? Well, yeah, it came from white men.
More women, war criminals.
Yeah, but let's be specific, Michael. More women scientists who experiment on live human beings
Yeah.
who are German.
Yes.
Yes, more of those, please. Yeah, Dr. Mengele. Well, of course, he's the one who everyone remembers. But like we're kind of saying it feels a bit too much like World War II.
Yes.
Ludendorff is the bad guy. This German scientist is Dr. Mengele, and the Germans overall are bad. And Diana, of course, her big moment where she reveals her powers, she goes over no man's land. Who's she killing? She's killing the Germans in the trenches. And she's throwing them against the wall and she's booting them out of the buildings.
Yes, it is so weird. Like I was genuinely thinking that as I was watching it. It's like this film, and it's funny because we were talking recently in a casual capacity about how World War One is kind of glorified when World War One shouldn't be a war that's understood in terms of like nothing should ever be understood as having been achieved by World War One. And you'd think in a way that this is World War One is the perfect war to make a film about that basically says, oh man, isn't war such a tragedy? And yet by acting as if there are good guys and bad guys, which the film does seem to, with Chris Pine saying that, and having Wonder Woman fully commit herself to one side. She's not being the Dalai Lama here. She's not being like, oh, I'm gonna kind of just be the arbiter of peace who's not going to get involved or whatever. She's like fully committing herself to one side and just killing all the people on the other side, and the film treats it as a victory. The film's like, yes, she's done the good thing that the heroes do.
Yeah,
she's defeated the bad guys.
She wants to find Ares, but she automatically assumes that Chris Pine is good, even though Chris Pine never actually says, oh yeah, well he says to her right at the start, we're the good guys, but I would assume you need more than that.
Yeah, Ares would probably say that too.
Yeah, well that's the thing. Like, there's not a moment where Diana like internalizes that we need to stop the Germans. She just goes along with it, and that's the thing. She looks for Ares, but why couldn't Ares be on the British side? Why couldn't that be the case?
I was
the film assumes that it must be the German side because the good characters are on the British side. But that's the thing with Diana. If this exists in real life, she would she'd want to stop the war. She'd want to know about how did the war begin, and then it would be about, and then she'd be like, what do you mean this Austrian Duke got shot and now everyone's killing each other in northern France? What the fuck? And then if you actually learned the history of it, then she'd be like, okay, so maybe I don't need to go and kill Ludendorff, or maybe Ares isn't a German person on the Western Front, because maybe it's someone in Britain, and it actually turns out to be the case actually, but she doesn't know at the time.
That's the thing. I feel like people might say like, oh, it is showing the fact that both sides can be bad, and it is kind of being subversive in that sense because one of the bad guys is British. But the thing is, that's treated as a twist. It's treated as a twist too, akin to like, oh yeah, somebody on the good guy, one of the good guys is actually a bad guy, when it shouldn't be treated as a twist. It shouldn't be like this massive twist that an English person could have been evil. Gasp! But it's treated like a twist, so it kind of almost doubly defeats itself.
And here's the thing: there is a point where she says to Chris Pine, it's not just the Germans who were corrupted, it was everyone. And it's not true, of course, but it's true in the sense of the movie, but it's not a very long moment. Like, she just says it kind of out of nowhere, really, because Chris Pine was Chris Pine was stopping her from doing something which he believes would jeopardize things.
Yes.
So the line doesn't really make sense in that context. It's the correct line, and again, it's just a quick moment, really. But the key thing is there is no British equivalent to Ludendorff. It would be okay if awful people on both sides wanted the war to go on. But then, like we said, Ares is kind of behind it all, which in the context of discussing World War One and who is the bad guys does jive with, the Germans weren't really the bad guys, I guess. And he's on the British side, but he's not really British, of course. He's not actually Sir Patrick. But it does obscure the awful truth of World War One, I guess, which I guess leads me to my thoughts on Ares being in this plot at all.
Yes.
And here's the thing, like, Ares corrupting man, it does work, I guess. It makes sense to use World War One since that war, as we have discussed, was the most utterly pointless war in history that killed millions of people for no reason. But I do not like how the movie puts it down to Ares, even though it is a movie. I don't like it because it hides the fact that it was the ruling classes of Europe who engaged in a futile war and send millions of working class people, that's what they were, normal people in Germany, in France, in Britain, even in America, to die because these people were worthless to the ruling classes of Europe. And, You know, once again, it's class that dominates things. You know, we must reject this kind of liberal disposition to say, well, why
But
can't we all
Ares
get
did it.
along?
It's like it's like Obama said, Ares caused Trump.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like Chris Pine says, it's all down to one guy. Sorry, he says it isn't all down to one guy.
they
That's
have
what he
that
says,
line, yeah.
which is true. Okay, but then it kind of is once more at the end. Like it kind of like he comes back, and you know,
Yeah. The
that's
twist
thing.
almost ruins the message.
Yeah, that is completely true. The twist kind of ruins the message, and the true message of World War One. I mean, that would be a nice lesson to the movie if it was not one guy. But you know, Diana learns it doesn't matter. You have to fight for them anyway, which we'll get onto. But yeah, that's the thing. Just talking about like, you know, it was Ares who did it, and you know, of course everyone knows, the audience knows, Ares doesn't actually exist. So therefore, their impression of World War One might just be, well, it was just people just killing each other, you know, or what was going on here. I mean, there's a couple of lines where Diana's mad at the general for not, you know, how can you just let your soldiers die? You know, but it doesn't really get to the heart of why this war started. And you know, this movie forces us to talk about this because you know the war needs to be stopped, and there's actors on both sides, so we need to have a full discussion of how did the fuck did this war go down in the first place. You know, you can't hide from thinking that when so much of you know the conversation is around, well, how do we stop the war? What actors, like I said, are on each side. So yeah, that's my opinion. It is. I know it's a movie, but it's kind of hard to shuffle the actual truth out of the way when the actual truth is so damning. I guess. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so strange because it feels like a case of it was a good idea that was then ruined by, oh, we've got to have this in there because it's like it's very obvious. That's the kind of funny thing. It's almost. I would almost go so far as to say it's kind of too obvious the way they're setting up, like, oh, you really think that killing Ares is going to just end the war? That obviously when she finds out killing Ares isn't going to end the war, it's like, oh, that's the message. And it's, you know, it's a good message, and it's kind of an interesting message for a character to have. And it would make this film stand out, which I think is such a crazy thing when you consider that we've said that this film comes across as just such a generic superhero film. So to say, like, that if the message of this film was no, the reason why bad things happen and the main threat of this world is not an all-powerful villain, but simply the failures of human society brought about through, you know, systemic issues, which is basically what World War I was. It was a failure of human society brought about through systemic issues regarding national borders, war profiteering, political egos, things like that. So, you know, to have that be the message that Wonder Woman gets would be really great and really interesting. And I kind of feel like I don't even know if it was studio interference, but I'm sure somebody must have thought, yeah, but we've got to have like a proper villain. And I think maybe that's why they were like Ares. I actually do have a minor thing about Ares, which is it's a very academic take, so I wanted to throw it out so I look smart. I don't really like how this film applies a kind of moral dualism to Greek mythology, because of course, I know we probably don't have a big section on cultural critique, but it's important to note that in ancient pagan pantheons, the idea of there being like good gods and bad gods didn't really exist. It was kind of just like the gods all had their own purposes and no part of society was viewed as bad. So the idea that Ares, the god of war, would have been a bad guy is just kind of at odds with how actual Greek mythology would have viewed things. Just a minor, I guess it's almost a nitpick, but I felt like it was too academic, too smart. But overall, just the fact that they have this villain there in the first place, you know, not only is it at odds with Greek mythology, but I think it's at odds with what could have made this a more interesting kind of film with a much more impactful message.
Yeah, no, it could have, and we're going to get onto that in a bit, but yeah, just on the fact that he's there in the first place. And I know, you know, at the end he says, well, I didn't actually do anything, you know. It was humanity, you know, that did it. Really, I can't force people to do stuff. But at the same time, it is like, well, he played a part. And again, even if, you know, even if he wasn't in this movie and the message was, you know, hey, all humans just kill each other, you know, humanity is just really bad, I still, and which is what Chris Pine kind of says, I still don't think that is enough, because I still think it obscures, again, the damning reality.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of a human nature thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not just human nature. This is what humans do, you know. And it's again, it's just a silly movie or whatever. But like, you know, if you're bringing up these ideas, if you're bringing up this stuff about how this war got going, then I'm gonna have to critique it if you get it wrong. I'm sorry, and it's quite a big thing to get wrong, in my opinion. Right, so let's get into Diana's arc now. And we've talked about this a bit before, but right, let's fully get into this. So here's the thing. I really have a problem with Diana's arc. I think as a character, she's good. I think she's charismatic, definitely, and that works. And you consider other DC movies around the time. What we have, Man of Steel, and then we have Aquaman,
Yes.
and then we have the Batman. I mean, Ben Affleck, whatever, he's fine. But yeah, this was nice. It's a very un-Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah.
With a very happy, well, not happy, very keen, very eager main character, which is nice. But her character arc, though, is just all over the place. And see, at the start, she seems unsure of herself. Like I said, in that scene where she's battling, is it Hippolyta? I just remembered just out of nowhere.
Chipolata.
No, Hippolyta. Who's the queen is Hippolyta. So that I don't know. But anyway, she's battling Robin Wright in front of the queen, which is her mum, and then she uses her special. I don't know, what are they, Michael? Wrist things?
Yeah, I think they're called. Are they gauntlets, or is gauntlets only gloves?
I don't know.
Because
remind me,
yeah,
they're like those things that basketball players wear. They're like sleeves, like wrist sleeves. Yeah, but really powerful bulletproof ones.
Oh wait, are they called greaves? I think they're called greaves.
I don't care.
Say it, greaves now.
Greaves. Greaves. So she blasts everyone away, and then everyone looks at her like, "What the fuck, bitch?" No, I mean that's the sense I got. And then she wanders off to the ocean, and of course the plot starts. But she doesn't seem happy with herself, and maybe I thought, okay, the movie is gonna make her seem unsure of what she can do, or if she should do what she should do, something like that. But no, like she goes to No Man's Land, of course. She's very keen to help Chris Pratt as well. Chris Pine, and I like how she Chris Pine says, "Oh, no man's land." That mean no man can cross it, and she's a woman. I do like that. I do like that because that is literally what it was called. So it makes sense. But here's the thing: she has the confidence to go and do that, to just immediately just go across no man's land. Like there is no arc. She is super confident right away, and if you want to do the thing where she finally lets loose, which is kind of what that scene was, then she should have been telling everyone, how great she was and how she was a god, basically, how she was sent from Themyscira to help. Like the British generals were, questioning her, and she's telling them, and then they're laughing at her, like, yeah, right. And then the little crew that they got together with all the stereotypes.
Yeah, Captain America.
What?
Well, remember when I was thinking about this, and I didn't know where else to mention it. In Captain America: The First Avenger, he kind of puts together a crew of like.
Oh right, yeah.
And it's kind of like, and I swear they literally form in a pub.
That's why. Yeah. No, it's in a pub. I can't remember. Maybe. Yeah. It's kind of. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, kind of the same thing. So yeah, that the bunch of stereotypes, they get together to and she should have been telling them this, and they should have laughed at her as well. And then the soldiers in the trenches, they should have laughed at her as well. She should have got to the trenches and then had whoever was in charge of that battalion, laugh at her, like when she's saying that she's going to help them, and they should have been like, hey, we've been here for a year, we've been here for a year, and you're going to come in. And you say you're this god and you're going to help us. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. She should have kept getting dismissed, and she shouldn't have been able to help right away. She should have been held back. Yeah. And then they would have made, the fuck it, I'm a superhero.
Yeah, she doesn't really have many meaningful, I guess, barriers and conflicts.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's no barriers. She gets to go where she wants to go quite quickly. No one really laughs at her. And then, then she walks up a ladder and she's a superhero. There's like you say, no barriers, no obstacles. It's quite easy for her. She's always confident. She always believes in herself. She should have kept getting dismissed, and she should have not been able to immediately go across no man's land. And that would have made it, like I say, more impactful. So yeah, what do you think about that?
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. Like basically, there's very little personal conflict. It's funny because in some sense there is the aspect of the personal conflict is the ideological conflict around what causes war, is it Ares, that kind of stuff. That's like her personal conflict. The problem is that one, to the extent that's even challenged at all, it's only something that she's challenged on in literally like the last 10 minutes of the film. So it's kind of like up until that point. Because I do agree that's something about her.
Well, yeah, that's what we're going to get
she
onto
struggles
next.
to deal with. But then apart from that, throughout the rest of the film, there's nothing else she struggles to deal with. Apart from maybe you could say like right at the beginning she struggles to deal with things because she's not allowed
Then
to
that
train.
goes away.
And then that goes away. And then, yeah, literally, so there's kind of like a massive chunk in the middle of this film, over an hour long chunk, of just, she's like, oh, let's go here. And I'm like, yep, we'll take you there. And she's like, okay, I want to go over No Man's Land. Yep, go over No Man's Land. Yeah, I agree with you.
It's constantly just Chris Pine saying, no, you can't do that, Diana. No, that's stupid. You can't. And then she just does it.
Women.
And then, oh, there we go. There we go. Well, she succeeded. Let's move on to the next thing she has to do. And yeah, there was a nice thing with, and this is what we're going to talk about now, with Chris Pine at the end about, basically him telling her, you got to be a hero. Yes, the world doesn't deserve you, but it doesn't matter. That could have been a consistent arc throughout the movie, but it really wasn't. It could have been something mentioned again and again. Like, oh yes, I'm here to defeat Ares, to save mankind. She could have said that. And then at the end, when she kills quote unquote Ares, when it's actually not Ares, it's Ludendorff, then it's like, oh shit, does this world even deserve me if they're just going to keep on fighting? And of course, like you said, Michael, that could have been great. That could have been the arc, basically, where she realizes that she's a hero. She has to be a hero. It doesn't matter that mankind is bad or can be bad. She still has to fight for these people.
Yeah, it's a bit like Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, everything's always going wrong for him. The world's, everyone's always pushing him around, whether it's J. Jonah Jameson, his, professors, the people at his school, that kind of stuff. But the point is, he keeps fighting because he knows it's the right thing to do.
He does. He does know it's the right thing to do. And that's as heroic as you can get. But then, of course, like we say, it turns out that Ares is kind of behind it all. He shows her the German gas scientist, and he says to Diana, this is what all humans are like. You are right, they don't deserve you. But the fact is, Ares has influenced things to such a degree that even though Diana is like, well, actually humans are good as well because of my relationship with Chris Pine, so I will fight for humans, they do deserve me. Even though, that's her takeaway, it's still like, well, the thing about Ares corrupting man was, half right, perhaps. So it doesn't really make her decision as impactful. It's like, okay, yeah, she didn't get it 100% right, but she was kind of there, I mean, I think it would be so good if Diana saves the day, knowing that men can be awful, but she's a hero and she wants to save people, and there is no Ares at all, basically. And she has to, it's the conflict within her is between her mother, who has been saying all along, who said to her on the island that mankind doesn't deserve you, and then Chris Pine, who is a man who is like saying, no, can you please help us? I know you can just swan off to Themyscira and never have to worry about this, but could you please do this? Even though we have done this to ourselves, which again, like I said, I disagree with really. It was the ruling classes of Europe, but whatever. Even though we have done this to ourselves, can you please help me? Or help us. And that would have been a really nice conflict, but it is quite simple. She has to defeat Ares. She has to kill Ares. And yes, okay, Ares can't force people to do what... I mean, he could just be lying by saying that, by the way. That's something we have to mention, but, he can't force people to do what they need to do, but, it still makes a decision so less impactful. And of course, like you said, it's kind of maybe while writing the movie, people were like, okay, well, the studio were like, okay, we got to have a big villain in it. And we got to have a big villain to fight Wonder Woman at the end so we can have this massive, great battle. And that's what a lot of people criticised the movie for at the time, and I did too when I watched it for the first time. It's like, this movie up to this point was, I'd say, quite good. It's definitely very competent, and then at the end it just takes a massive nosedive. Not just because of the fact that these massive end-of-movie battles are so cliche and so pointless and it's just a CGI fuckfest, but also it completely ruins the potential message that could have been there in this movie, or Diana's character arc. So yeah, it's just all around an awful way to finish the movie. So what do you think, Mike?
No, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I basically agree with you. It's just disappointing. I mean, I guess the one positive thing I'll say about the end of the movie is that Chris Pine's a pretty nice guy. He's pretty funny. And therefore, when he dies, it's kind of sad. And I guess it's kind of nice that her seeing a human being do a heroic thing is what convinces her. It kind of, I guess, humanizes her a bit more, because it's sort of like, you compare it to Superman, where it's like, Superman's just so much better than every single other person that he's basically just above everyone, or Dr. Manhattan. But, with Wonder Woman, it's kind of like because she sees a human being do something heroic, that's where she gets her motivation to be heroic. So there's something nice about that. But yeah, definitely the way that they have this kind of reveal set up is just so disappointing and very deleterious to the power of the plot.
Very, very deleterious.
Yes.
Very deleterious.
Having the quality of deleting stuff.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, pal. That sounds like an ancient Greek word, or a name for an ancient Greek
lots
god.
of English words are Greek.
Well, deleterious sounds like the god of
of deleting things.
the god of mistakes.
Diana, Deleterious is going to delete everything. He thinks humanity was a mistake.
Yeah, he was right.
That's the plot of Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay, so
But it's going to be the government deleting everything.
Okay, so you are right. Yeah, it would. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. What is Diana saved by? Again, I didn't really agree with this either. She's like, humans are actually good too. Look at the good I've seen in Chris Pine.
You think she should have seen good in more people?
Well, she should have just been like, she should have just had empathy for these. Maybe it was impossible because she's never seen them before and she's different. She's a different species. Like, I don't know. Imagine if you were like, you saw a bunch of, I don't know, ants fighting each other. And you were like, oh, I got to step in here, I guess, because one super ant is controlling them all. I got to kill this super ant. And then you realise that the super ant didn't exist, and you were like, oh, I guess they're all killing each other anyway. Should I stop this? Nah, I'll just leave it. And so I imagine if she sees herself above humanity, then I guess like she's a different species. Then I guess it's like, well, why the fuck do I care? Kill yourselves then. Like but the fact that I guess to make it more realistic, Chris Pine has to show her that there is good in humanity as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's not as heroic as Spider-Man though. That message though. And maybe it's impossible because Spider-Man is actually a human and Diana is not. But yeah, and is an issue. Okay, so let's move on to Chris Pine actually, Michael. At the end, so let's talk about him. So he fills this role of the sidekick, who is supportive and shows the hero the way and the love interest. People commented he was basically like what most women are in superhero movies, the same kind of thing. But I just couldn't help how uncurious he is. Like throughout the movie, he's just so uncurious about everything. He doesn't ask why all of the people on Themyscira are women. I noticed that he didn't actually.
Actually, it is kind of weird because this is one of those films like they have the voiceover at the beginning to set the scene for everything. It's kind of like they really didn't need that for this film because they had a character coming in who would have been kind of a perfect character to be like, hey, what's this, and have it all explained to them. So the narration at the beginning was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, no, it really was. I mean, you could have just had Chris Pine asking questions, and that it would have made sense because he should be asking questions. Imagine if you washed up on this beach, you'd be like, "What the hell is going on?"
I'd be very curious.
Yeah. He doesn't even ask about what the fog thing around the island was either. Yeah. I imagine that confused him a bit. It's like suddenly it's dark, and then oh my god, it's this beautiful tropical paradise. He just doesn't seem curious at all. He doesn't seem to ask or want to know about Diana's incredible ability to jump 100 feet in the air, and to be honest, none of the other soldiers do. That's the thing. There is a real lack of curiousness in this movie about Diana. Like, there's just this woman who is like a literal god who comes to help you by your side, and you're just carrying on if everything's normal. You're making jokes about dancing and all of that. And what is marriage? Oh, this is what marriage is. Blah blah. Blah. You've got a literal god right next to you. You want to ask him? I mean, maybe I'm just a curious person, Michael, but I'd want to know. Well, how the fuck can you deflect bullets that easily? And that's the thing. There's this. He doesn't believe her when it comes to Ares either. He's just like, there's Diana there again going on about Ares. Blah 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 blah. Rolling his eyes. What would convince you to be so confident that Ares does not exist, given the existence of Diana? Like, I'd be like, oh my god, maybe she's fucking right. Like, look at this. She's not human. Maybe it is the god of Greek god, controlling everything. And she's near Greece. That's why she lives in the Aegean. Oh fuck! But she can just dismiss it out of hand, as does the Scottish guy. It's like, I can't believe. Don't tell me you believe that. Just have you seen this woman? Have you seen what she can do? How are you just dismissing this? It doesn't make any sense to me, Michael. Tell me I'm right.
You're wrong, Luke. It makes complete sense.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, sorry.
That's good to know.
I just thought that you needed to have somebody stand up for you. Stand up to you, sorry. Not stand up for you. That would be the wrong thing. No, yeah. Basically, you're right. I mean, that's it. It's like... And I guess I was actually thinking about this. See, I think about this a lot. And it's something where, some people might call me a nerd for this. But I do think with the DC films in particular, I find the lack of world building very strange. Like, just the sheer, like, how does everything fit together? Like, so you have these Greek gods that exist, but then you also have, like, magic, and you have
Justice League explained it all.
Throughout space.
Justice League explained it all.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. So Justice League, that's why Justice League was so good. But no, yeah, it's definitely, like, you'd think they could kind of, not only would curiosity make more sense, but yeah, there's plenty of things which I'd be curious to see the explanation to, so yeah.
No, absolutely, and just no explanations needed. And then this is another problem with Chris Pine's character. He tries to stop Diana from killing Ludendorff, but surely he must be like, well, we can just capture and threaten some people to tell us where the gas is, and then Diana can destroy the gas. I mean, or Diana can just kill everyone and force their surrender. Like, you've got this all-powerful god on your side, and you've seen her do some incredible things. You must be like, well, that's it, we fucking won now. We don't really need to worry, because... And then she walks through the gas later on. I mean, maybe he didn't know that, but he's like, oh, she's not even affected by this deadly gas, which kills everybody. Like, oh my god, it's like I'm going to use another sport comparison. In football, you've got a tap in, like from 2 yards out. Just tap the ball in. You don't need a series of intricate passes and moves to score a goal, or in this case, to stop this war. You've won the lottery with this god princess. Just have her go into that gala at the end. Just kill everybody and get Ludendorff and threaten to tell her where the gas is, or the German scientist, or threaten some other people that they don't want to tell. She can kill everybody. You can't fucking shoot her. She's a god. I mean, what are we doing here, folks? What are we doing here? Why do you need to continue these intricate things? What I don't understand, Michael. I don't understand. There should be after Diana saves that French town. He should just be rubbing his hands and saying, right, okay, we've won this, haven't we? Let's just go in and let's just smash them all up. We just gained like 20 miles in like 5 minutes when, nobody's been able to penetrate this thing for a year. And yeah, like...
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. Because you think about like how valuable being able to take a whole trench, and especially seeing as like, I mean, it just, anyone who knows anything historically about World War I knows that once one trench fell, that was like a big deal, because it was then like... It was like you would want to push towards the next one.
The floodgates, yeah, that's the phrase. It was like a bursting of a dam. I remember that when I read this story about when tanks were first introduced into the battlefield, and they were so successful. Like they were in fact too successful. They just absolutely destroyed like everyone in the trenches. The British introduced them, I think, and they got so far. Like they got so far. They went too far, basically. Yeah, and they had to go back. It's like, oh, we haven't got enough troops to support us here, So that was the introduction of tanks, and I mean, it was if I was Chris Pratt. Have I been calling him Chris Pratt for long?
No, I think you just occasionally do it. I mean, I occasionally do it too.
All right,
so.
It's Chris Pine, obviously, Chris Pine, and I'd be like, just go into that gala, murder people, find the gas, destroy that gas.
Especially since the Germans are the bad guys. So
yeah, of course, the Germans.
About it.
Yeah, the Germans are the bad guys. But to be fair, Chris Pine could be like, hey, the Germans, we're all bad. I just want to stop this war. Our side's winning. This is the best way to do it. Okay, he could have that. He couldn't be morally wrong in wanting to kill the Germans in this instance, especially as those are the German ruling class who
actually, you
established.
You just reminded me of a point I was thinking about, which I was going to mention when we were talking about the villain, and I didn't. I was actually thinking that a good twist, especially if they didn't want to go down this stupid Ares twist, would be to have Chris Pine, be a German spy. And it's kind of like basically what it would do. It wouldn't be like he's a German spy, therefore he's a bad guy. But rather the point would be Chris Pine is a German spy. And it shows how people on both sides of the war can be good. And particularly I was thinking, because the line was...
to change the whole plot for that though.
Well, the reason why I was thinking about it, this is what got me thinking about it, is when he said, before they went into the gala, he was like, you can't just kill a load of German high command. And I was thinking, obviously I'm sure there's other reasons why an allied soldier might say that. But... I was thinking, what if the reason he's saying that is because he's actually a German spy? But that didn't happen.
But why the fuck not? Why the fuck not? Like what they gonna do? They're nearing surrender. You kill them all. that weakens their position. They're not going to be like, oh, we're not going to surrender now because you've got this fucking god princess on your side. Like, it's stupid. And even at the end of the movie, like when he sacrifices himself, you said, oh, what a great moment, where he jumps on the plane,
perfect moment,
and blows it up. Again, I'm just sitting there thinking, well, why couldn't you have got Diana to do that? It's like, hey, Diana, can you just quickly, stop that plane? You're being a god and all. Can you, just go and do that? Cheers. It'll take you like 30 seconds, and then I don't have to kill myself, and, there won't be a scratch on you. I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, he has to sacrifice. Again, it's just, like, he's won, like I said, he's won the lottery, and he doesn't know it. Like, he's still acting like Diana is, his secretary, that fat British girl from London. She's not. And it just, it's after a few times of her showing that she's literally a superhero, almost on par with, I guess, Superman, it's who cares if she gets found out in the German gala? Who the fuck cares? What are they going to do? Just so frustrating. And that was my issues with Chris Pratt. No, those are my issues with Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Here's my issues with Chris Pratt. He needs to be cancelled. This is why... His name sounds like Chris Pine. That's my problem.
Yes,
also, Jurassic World wasn't very good. I agree with you that he is. Yeah, I do think he is pretty stupid, and
that's the thing. There's a lot of stupid things about this movie. I mean, it's like competent, but again, then you just think about it for a second, which is of course what we do, and then you realise maybe this movie has some really bad flaws in it that just watching intensely, you kind of work out. That's what I like to do. I like to pause. I don't actually pause a movie, but I like to pause a movie metaphorically and be like, well, how are each of these characters? How do they feel about this situation? And I'm just like, I don't get why Chris Pine is so cowardly. Basically, go in, have Diana fucking snap Ludendorff's neck. Who the fuck cares? You're gonna win the war. Don't matter. Anyway, so that's it, Michael. Do you want to conclude first? I assume we have reached the conclusion.
This film, it is again, it's so weird because it's nice that it's the best DC film, I guess, because it's funny that Zack Snyder gets dunked on because he made all these films, and then the one that he had the least to do with, even though he was involved in writing it, but the least to do with, did really well. Isn't that funny? And then obviously, I guess it's kind of nice that the women did a good film, well, the best film in the DC universe, but I guess, to be honest, the kind of people who would be Zack Snyder fanboys that loved Dawn of Justice are probably also not the kind of people to be on board with a woman-led superhero film, because you know what they're like, Zack Snyder fanboys. So the political implications aside, because there aren't really too many of them, this film's just, it is really average, and it's kind of just like, it's not bad, like it's fine, and you're not necessarily going to dislike watching it. But at the same time, it's kind of an issue. One, I think there's an issue of the fact that it's an installment in an expanded universe, which is itself crap. Like, I do think, a lot of people talk about, when they talk about these expanded universes, they talk about them in a positive sense of like, oh, it's all interconnected and it means there's loads of interesting stuff there. But I think the flip side is, it also means like, that when you've got a good film in a rubbish expanded universe, it's kind of like, what's the point of this? Like, you can watch it, but so what? So you can understand the plot to Justice League? I don't know if there's any point from that. And then obviously the themes are a bit dodgy. I really want to give this film a 5, but then there's another part of me that's almost like, is it even a 4? Because, there's so much to it where you're just like, oh, I don't know, couldn't it have more going on? I think overall, though, I will say it is a 5. It's not, it's not in the bad range. It's literally average. And with that in mind, I'm going to put it above Braveheart, but below The Fugitive, and that's Wonder Woman. This is a low 5, low bordering on middling 5.
Okay, thanks for that, Mike. Yeah, thanks for that. So I'll say this: that there is a positive. Again, I think Diana's character is good. I think Chris Pine does a good job as well, and it's a fun movie, I guess. Like, if you switch your brain off, it's fine, and it can be enjoyable, and that's good. That's better than previous DC movies, as we have said. And yes, the plot makes sense until you think about it. Character motivations make sense until you think about it, and we need to think about it, considering at 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, I maybe I wouldn't be so scathing or try to pick holes in this movie if this wasn't so well reviewed. But I'm like, okay, this is the standard. I'm going to see if it meets the standard, and it hasn't. The Amazonians are stupid. Like we said, the whole I just they all run into their beach like charge, let's defend our island, and they all die. Oh my god, there's some shitty German soldiers with wet guns, who can't fucking shoot properly. Ares then ruins the potential message of the movie by being in it. The end fight scene is a CGI mess, like we said, and like him being in the movie in general, it makes sense, but it does obscure, I guess, the message of World War One, and how and that is the message of World War One is this was a travesty. Look what happens when people in power throw away people's lives, into the dustbin of history, and that is really bad what they did. And again, this kind of covers it up, like, oh yeah, no, it was Ares, and not even that. If Ares didn't exist, it would still be, just humans are really bad. Oh, look what humanity can do. Again, doesn't really get into the issue. And also, the fact that the Germans are portrayed as the bad guys for most of the movie, and until the end. And there's like one line where it tries to save it when Diana says, "No, you're just as bad," but it doesn't really stick, I don't think. And Diana's character arc as well, like we said, just isn't good at all. I mean, maybe I hate to be that guy, Michael. I hate to be that guy, but maybe she didn't have a character arc and she didn't doubt herself because she's a female, in a female superhero movie, that kind of thing. It's like, well, we can't have her have weaknesses because she's empowering.
Mary Sue.
Yeah, and I don't know if that is a fair criticism, because I don't know if this literally was the idea they got, or there was a specific thing from the studio. It's like, no, we want Diana to be strong and powerful, and we don't want her to question herself. The only thing she questions, which is still a nice thing to question, is does humanity deserve her? Which I think is fair enough when we're talking about gods and superhero movies and all of that. Her arc isn't great either. So I put all these holes in the movie, but it's still like better than like Justice League and Aquaman. Or what did I give Aquaman, Michael? Can you remember? What did I give Aquaman?
Because I don't know, remember. Probably a 5. I think I gave it a 5 because it was fun. I might have given it
I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5. Okay, this movie.
I gave it a 4. So I mean.
Okay, this movie is better than Aquaman. What did you give it? What did you?
I gave Aquaman a 4. I gave this a low 5. So.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 5.5. Because it can't be like Aquaman should be low. So 5.5 for Wonder Woman, which is like average, just probably below average. Barely competent, I guess. But it's a superhero movie, so I've not rated a superhero movie higher than 8. So really, the scale is 1 to 8 instead of 1 to 10. So if you look at that scale, it's above average. So Michael, that means Aquaman's above average as well. Oh shit!
Oh no!
Shit.
To be fair, Aquaman was like dumb fun. So if you clarify that, then no one.
Yeah. It was like it had some. I heard this amazing comparison with Aquaman, like Black. It was like the Black Panther for dumb guys. Like
that is funny.
Yeah, Black Panther was inspirational for African Americans. This Aquaman was to I guess meatheads, as it were. So Michael, we need to discuss the Wonder Woman 1984 movie and the ranking. So this is going to be our last guess of the year on the Rotten Tomatoes ratings, because of course we haven't guessed since Mulan in September, and that was when the movie came out. I can't remember the last time we actually guessed, but essentially there is only 2 points between us. This will be the last. Wonder Woman 1984 comes out on Christmas Day, December 25th, but is released on the 16th of December in cinemas across the world, which in countries that don't have Disney+. So, Michael, I know it's a bit off the cuff, but like I said, only 2 points between us, and we've got to... You are 2 points ahead, and we have got to, guess what Wonder Woman 1984 Rotten Tomatoes score is going to be. So, on the count of 3, we shall each say what score we think it's going to get on Rotten Tomatoes, and if it's if there's less than 2, well that's gonna be a problem. We're gonna have to figure it out after. Okay, are you ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1, 87. Oh my god. 87. Right, I'm gonna go down then. I'll move. Shall I move? I'm gonna go down to 86. Yes. Okay. Yeah, but again, we're so close. So we're really too close. It doesn't make it fun if we're so close. But anyway, I guess it's the last one of the year, so it's fine if we're close. and we'll figure it out next week. So what are we doing next week, Michael?
Well, next week we are getting back into the swing of things with a film I'm so rooty-tooting excited to do, Home Alone.
Yes, Home Alone. It's a
Christmas film.
Is Home Alone a Christmas movie? That's what we shall debate.
Yes. I did think it was good, except for the part where see, the funny thing is, actually, I was going to make a joke about it being similar to Die Hard, and yet the funny thing is, it is kind of similar to Die Hard, and that it's about basically a guy using violence against a bunch of people in a building with him.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the most this movie really kicked off at the crime bill thing in America.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll get into that later. So yes, thank you for listening. We've been selecting and reflecting on Wonder Woman because of Wonder Woman 1984. Above average movie, but it's not that good.
It's like Chris Pine said, I'm above average.
Yeah, he is, but above average for a superhero movie. Let me clarify.
Yeah.
But yeah, still pretty bad overall. Join us next week for Home Alone. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.